Bloom, written by Jack Reed. Chapter 1. I've never met a soul like hers. Evelyn Brown's hair was tied back in a loose knot, strands falling like small rebellions. The uniform hung open at the collar, one sleeve stained dark with old coffee, a human badge of endurance. Every step she took landed in rhythm, steady, measured, deliberate, the grace of someone fighting gravity and winning. Outside, sirens pulsed in the distance, bouncing between the cracked windows of a diner off 149th Street in the Bronx. The neon sign above the door flickered like it was tired of holding the word open. Inside, the air was thick with burnt toast, engine oil from passing buses, and the static of lives trying to stay upright. She moved through it all like a fixed note in a broken song. Slouched shoulders, yes, but everything else contradicted that posture. Fast, light on her feet, voice carrying across the room with that practiced warmth, the living used to disguise exhaustion. I had a file on her, every flaw catalogued. Too flexible, too giving, chronic asthma, panic episodes, the kind of person who should have already cracked under the fluorescent buzz of double shifts. On paper, she was a checkmate waiting to happen. In reality, she was a stalled game I couldn't close. She disappeared into the back for a few seconds, an inhaler hiss, the clink of a mug, and came back out like nothing happened. Resilient, predictable, dangerous. The higher offices didn't like her type. Too much warmth in one person could spread. Warmth turns to hope. Hope turns to defiance. I was sent to stop it. When she reached my booth, she set the cup down without spilling a drop. "Here you go," she said, smiling like she meant it. It wasn't the smile that caught me. It was the light behind it, small, bright, and stubborn. I'd seen that light before in stronger souls. It always ended the same, flicker, fade, silence. Yet here she was, humming under her breath, as if she'd forgotten the rules. That kind of light spreads, and that's what I was here to contain. "Excuse me," I said. She turned, still smiling. "Yes?" "The coffee's cold." It wasn't. I just wanted to see if the mask would slip. She blinked once, then nodded. "Sorry about that. I'll grab you a fresh one." No irritation, no visible crack. She took the cup, refilled it, and returned in less than 30 seconds. When she set it down, the smile was smaller but still alive. "Better?" "Perfect," I said, watching the tremor in her wrist. The kind of small tremor exhaustion breeds. She moved on. Around her, people argued, laughed, cursed at the news playing on the overhead TV. She slipped through the noise untouched. The others saw a waitress. I saw structure. And if I didn't dismantle it soon, it would start to change everything around her. "Refill?" she asked, passing again. I nodded, sliding the cup forward. "You have steady hands," I said. She looked up, amused. "Oh yeah?" "Yes, the kind you'd expect from a surgeon or a pilot." "Or a painter," she said. That one word, painter, cut clean through the air. Her file had mentioned it. Her little apartment studio, the canvases stacked by the heater, the colors she used, warmth and sky. Hope rendered in oil, dangerous things. She didn't just paint, she manufactured hope. "You sound like you're analyzing me," she said. "Habit," I replied. "Must be exhausting," she said softly, "watching instead of seeing." Her words hit harder than they should have. I forced a smile. "Sometimes." She moved on, humming again. The sound traveled through the clatter and hiss of the diner like a thread of color I couldn't unsee. The rhythm of the place changed with her, and I didn't like it. Time to shift the board. When she turned to take an order from the truckers, I focused on the chair she always brushed past near the counter. Just a nudge, barely a thought. When she came back, she didn't notice. Her shin caught the edge, the tray tilted, 2 cups fell and shattered, coffee bleeding across the tile. The crash froze the room. She didn't swear, didn't flinch, just crouched, gathering shards with her bare hands. "I'm sorry," she said, calm and steady. From behind the counter, Sean appeared, irritation rehearsed to look natural. "That's the second spill this week," he said. She didn't argue. "I'll clean it up." "You're supposed to avoid breaking things," he muttered. He looked my way, half a second too long. He remembered who'd asked him to keep pressure on her. She didn't see it. She stayed kneeling, fingertips bleeding in thin, bright lines, then stood, wiped her palms on her apron, and went back to work. The chatter resumed, the diner pretending nothing had happened. I watched her longer, the way she reset her rhythm, adjusted her tray, the quiet discipline in every movement. Even her suffering had symmetry. I leaned back, studying her reflection in the window. Most people fall apart predictably. Evelyne adapted. She bent, never broke. That wasn't supposed to happen here. But there was logic in everything. Patterns repeat. Eventually, something would give. It was only a matter of pressure and time. Chess, not chaos. I finished my coffee, left the cup where her handprint still shone faintly on the rim. A few minutes later, Sean came over, wiping his hands on a rag. "You want me to write her up?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "Let her think she's winning." He frowned. "You really think she is?" "She's a few moves ahead," I admitted, "but the game's not over." I set a 20 on the table, 15 for her, 5 for the bill. "She'll remember it," I said. He nodded slowly. "You'll be back?" "In a week," he smirked. "And in the meantime?" "Put her through hell," I said. "Let's see what breaks first." As I turned toward the door, I felt someone watching me. A man stood at the corner booth, quiet, unreadable. He wasn't eating, just sitting with a half-empty cup, eyes like old glass. Calm. When our gazes met, the noise of the diner seemed to drop a few degrees. He didn't look away. I felt the air shift, subtle, like the pause before lightning decides where to strike. A guardian. No wonder she was doing so well. Great. Another problem for me to solve. Guess that's why I was assigned the case. I dropped a few bills on the counter and pushed out into the cold Bronx air, sirens echoing off the brick and metal like a heartbeat that wouldn't quit. The game had just changed. Chapter 2. Like myself, the city didn't sleep. Its lights whispered in colors I could taste, and the night hummed in a key humans could not hear. I moved through it with ease, every shadow yielding under my stride. My kind knows the rhythms of darkness. We do not stumble, we do not tire. We observe, we wait. I had taken 3 steps down the wet sidewalk before the warmth vanished, ripped away like a curtain torn from its hooks. A heavy force slammed into my back, knocking the air from my lungs. Hands, hard and precise, grabbed me, one around my throat, another around my arm. A sharp blow to my ribs. Pain flared, sharp and biting. I swung back, snarling, and froze. Recognition struck me in the flicker of streetlight. Rex and Ken, my boss's bodyguards, loyal, efficient, and violent. "Boss wants a word," Rex hissed, his voice low and clipped. Darkness swallowed us before I could react. They dragged me toward a side door, muscles coiling with practiced precision, the city's hum fading behind us. They dragged me through the alley toward the nightclub, toward her domain. From the street, the nightclub looked ordinary enough. Neon signs buzzed overhead, muffled bass shook the walls while a few careless pedestrians lingered at the curb. But as we entered, the air smelled different, sweet, smoky, and charged. I inhaled, savoring it. Danger had a flavor. Power, even more. My kind knows the scent of power. The air pressed against me, heavier now. Not unpleasant, but alive, aware. My eyes adjusted quickly, taking in the shapes moving through smoke and light. Rex and Ken nudged me toward the bar. The bartender, a human-shaped thing, leaned in with eyes too sharp, too still. "She wants to see him," Rex said, almost bored. The panel beneath the counter clicked open. A narrow flight of stairs led down, damp stone and the tang of old wine filling the air. I paused. Rex's hand nudged me forward. "Wait, Merlot, 1973. I grabbed a bottle from a nearby rack, recognizing one of her favorites. The glass shivered in my hand. Ken chuckled softly. Careful. Expensive stuff. I held it, off balance but controlled. The wall beyond spun open with a low click. A secret passage, dimly lit, throbbed with bass that vibrated through my chest. Rex and Ken blocked the exit as I slipped inside. The space beyond swallowed me. The nightclub was darker than anything above ground could suggest, a pit of heat, shadow, and light pulsing in an erratic rhythm. Smoke curled from low burners along the walls, coiling around bodies like living serpents. Glass boxes dangled from the ceiling, each holding dancers moving in patterns precise enough to mesmerize and disorient at once. Some spun gracefully. Others writhed as if testing the limits of their bodies. The patrons were different. Faces too sharp, smiles too wide, laughter too loud. Humans, yes, but not only humans. Something in their gait, in the way their eyes caught the light, betrayed a hunger I recognized. Lost souls, flitting between human and something else. Their movements were almost chaotic, yet rhythmic in a way that suggested the chaos was orchestrated. Wads of cash flew through the air, some tossed in glee, others in desperation. Hands snatched bills mid-flight, some clenching them like weapons. The air smelled of liquor, sweat, and something acrid and metallic that I couldn't quite place. Patrons leaned into each other, some laughing, others moaning softly beneath touches that lingered too long. Clothing was scant and revealing, designed for attention, yet the glint of jewelry and sheen of skin suggested this was a game as much about dominance as desire. I moved through it all, feeling the pulse of the place in the soles of my feet and the slight shiver along my spine. Patterns emerged. Who led? Who followed? Who sought? Who offered? The crowd was a living organism, chaotic but coherent if you knew how to read it. Every flicker of movement, every flash of teeth or eyes spoke of hierarchy, hunger, and peril. Humans would have drowned here. I thrived. At the center, a long table gleamed beneath a chandelier too ornate for practicality. And there she was, Vix, the queen of this madness. Black hair curled like ink around her face, her amber eyes sharp as molten metal. Every gesture radiated command. A tilt of her head, a flick of her wrist, a soft laugh that could curve your spine in delight and terror simultaneously. Patrons paused, imperceptibly shifting their rhythm in acknowledgement. Some dared to glance away. Others kept their gaze on her, intoxicated by her presence. She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand, a predator playing with her prey. Her lips curved into that familiar smile. Warm, teasing, deadly. I stepped closer. She noticed. Amber eyes locked onto mine for the briefest second, registering my arrival and assessing me. She leaned back, the fabric of her dress shifting luxuriously with her movement. One leg crossed over the other. Her body language was calm, but lethal in its subtlety. The dancers writhed in suspended boxes, barely aware of my presence, yet I could see the invisible strings pulling them. Subtle glances, barely audible whispers, flicks of hair, taps of a foot. Vix's influence was everywhere. A stack of bills landed on the floor near a table. Someone snatched it with manic glee. A drink toppled, soaking someone's outfit. Hands brushed in moments too intimate to be accidental. All orchestrated or random, impossible to tell. She called out softly, a single word that carried through the noise. Damien. I descended the remaining stairs toward Vix, remaining calm and letting her observe me. My vision was locked on her. She leaned forward, eyes tracing my form, reading what I hid and what I allowed to show. The hum of heat, lust, and anticipation pressed in on me, but I welcomed it. I was built for this. Observation, control, survival. A dancer leaped from a suspended box, landing among the others and nearly toppling a human who screamed, then laughed, eyes wide with fear and thrill. Bills flew. A hand slid along a thigh that should not have been exposed in public, but here everything blurred. Patrons kissed with teeth flashing and tongues darting, some grinning as though defiance itself were entertainment. A man clawed at another man's jacket, spilling coins everywhere. Chaos, lust, and drunken, gleeful madness were the law here. I continued forward as multiple hands grazed my body in passing, my face, my chest, my groin. Vix tilted her head, amused by their antics but always aware of me. Her attention was a tangible force, tugging at my consciousness. The music pulsed heavier now, bass rattling the floor and thumping against bone. Smoke mingled with fragrance, perfume, sweat, alcohol, fear. It wrapped around the dancers, the lost souls, and the humans like a cloak. I caught sight of Rex and Ken near the bar, subtly guiding the flow, eyes sharp, muscles coiled for action. I knew them too well. Their presence here, in the midst of this controlled chaos, signaled the stakes. She didn't need them often, but she kept them close for this, just in case. Glass shattered on the far side. A scream, silence for a fraction of a second. Vix's amber eyes flicked toward the source, then returned to me. No words, no acknowledgement, absolute control. I watched, breathing steady, mind assessing, body coiled. The chaos, the heat, the lust, and the danger all belonged to her. And I had been called here, to play, to measure, to survive. The music pulsed again. Wads of cash flew, hands grasped, bodies moved, lost souls intertwined with humans. Lust, greed, fear, thrill, and chaos. Simultaneously sensual and threatening. A perfect mirror of the city outside, but darker, sharper, and more alive. And at the center of it all, Vix reigned, smiling, shifting, dangerous, impossibly aware. The game had begun. She leaned forward, chin resting on her hand, her gaze sliding over the crowd before finally finding me. "Damien," she purred. The word carried warmth and venom at once. She tilted her head, a predator studying prey. "Finally. I was beginning to think you'd lost your nerve." I lowered myself into a chair, neutral and controlled. I could feel her energy probing mine, testing, measuring. I'd survived nights like this, but something about her made the shadows tremble differently. "You look restrained tonight," she said, her voice soft and teasing before cutting like glass. "But I can smell the hunger underneath." I did not flinch. Her presence pressed against me, but it was nothing I could not handle. My body, my mind, my being were honed for darkness, control, and observation. But tonight, irritation flickered briefly just beneath the surface. Not for her, not for the crowd, for the disturbance she represented, the shift she forced. Vix laughed, high and sharp, a sound that made the air itself quiver. She flicked her fingers toward a dancer, then whispered something to another. Faces morphed in awe, fear, or desire. Then, just as quickly, she snapped at a minion, her voice cruel and precise, leaving a bruise in the air. Sweet, then sharp. Lovely, then cruel. She existed in flux. "Disappointed," she said, her voice low, slicing through the bass and heat. Her gaze pinned me. "I expected more." Her words weren't frightening. They didn't inspire shame, but they pricked something beneath my skin, something I couldn't ignore. She had seen through my armor and decided I had failed in some small, essential way. The thought irritated me, exhilarated me, tested me. Glass shattered on a distant table. A scream, silence for a heartbeat. Her eyes flicked toward it, then returned to me, unblinking. Absolute control. I studied her, calculating, observing, thriving. Every vibration, every heartbeat, every flash of light and shadow was a note in the symphony I could read. The music, the lust, the greed, the chaos, they all belonged to her. And I had been called here to play, to measure, to survive. She leaned back, flicking her hair over one shoulder, a predator amused by her own domain. "You know," she said softly, almost coaxing, "I might have expected you to be better, smarter, faster, more ruthless." Her gaze sharpened, cruelty flashing like knives. I tasted iron in my mouth. Shadows clung to me as though alive, but here it was natural, perfect. I kept my composure. My hands rested on the table, long and pale, nails tipped darker than nature intended. "I need more time with her." I paused. "She's different." Vix's laughter returned, musical and cutting. "Oh, is stopping a painter too challenging for you, Damien?" She leaned forward suddenly, crushing a wineglass in her hand. Red liquid and shards spilled across the table, sending patrons skittering. The music cut. Movement froze. Every eye fixed on us. Her teeth bared, sharp. "I am disappointed. Now get out of here." She shoved me into a nearby table. I did not respond. I did not need to. As I turned my back and left, I felt her watching me, twisting me, teasing me without touching. The game had begun. The club pulsed behind me again. Lust, greed, desire, and chaos woven together. Lost souls twined with humans, some edges fraying, others reveling in their own pleasure. And at the center, Vix reigned. Chaotic, beautiful, dangerous, unpredictable. I observed, calculated, thrived, and tonight I felt it, a tug of something unfamiliar, something warm, something like anticipation. As I glanced back, Vix's amber eyes met mine again. She tilted her head, smiling softly and viciously at once. Disappointed. The word echoed through the underground, through the pulse of the night. Disappointed. Chapter 3. A week passed. Vix had given me 1 week to make progress. I intended to use every second of it. My first strategy had been simple. Apply pressure. Increase Evelyne's workload. Deprive her of rest. Let Sean handle the smaller humiliations. Difficult customers. Longer shifts. Fewer breaks. The ordinary cruelties humans inflicted upon one another every day. On paper, it should have worked. It hadn't. That was my mistake. I'd been treating Evelyne like a structure that could be weakened from the outside. Remove enough supports and eventually the whole thing collapses. But she wasn't a building. She adapted. Every obstacle gave her something to push against. So I needed to stop giving her an enemy. If I wanted to understand what kept that light burning inside her, I needed to get close enough to see where it came from. Which was why, 1 week after our first meeting, I found myself walking towards the diner again. Morning had settled over Manhattan beneath a ceiling of gray clouds. Rain from the night before still clung to awnings and fire escapes. Water collected along the gutters, carrying cigarette butts, wrappers, and leaves toward clogged drains. People hurried past me wrapped in coats and scarves. A woman standing beside a newspaper box rubbed her hands together for warmth. A delivery driver cursed as he wrestled boxes from the back of his truck. 2 men argued beside a taxi while the driver leaned against his horn. Cold, bothered humans. I understood the concept. I simply didn't share it. Temperature registered as information. Nothing more. The same was true of hunger, fatigue, thirst. Human needs were habits I had learned to imitate. Coffee was one of them. I carried a paper cup as I walked, occasionally raising it to my lips whenever someone happened to look my way. The liquid inside was hot. I knew because steam curled from the opening. It might as well have been rainwater. Still, carrying coffee made me look like everyone else. And in New York, a man walking to work without caffeine attracted more suspicion than almost anything supernatural. I threw the empty cup into a trash can before reaching the diner. The bell above the door jingled. Warm air rolled over me. Burnt coffee, bacon grease, toast, cleaning chemicals. Humanity before 9 in the morning. The place was crowded. Every booth seemed occupied. Forks scraped plates. Cups struck saucers. Someone near the window complained loudly about eggs being overcooked, while a child at another table repeatedly dropped pieces of pancake onto the floor. Then I saw her, Evelyne. She was carrying 3 plates along one arm while balancing a coffee pot in the other hand. Slower than last week. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was that she was hiding it. Her hair was pulled into the same loose knot, though several strands had escaped and stuck against her forehead. The shadows beneath her eyes had deepened. There were faint red marks along one forearm. Sean's work. Apparently, he'd taken my instructions seriously. She stopped beside a booth, distributed the plates, smiled at something one of the customers said, then turned toward the next table. No hesitation, no complaint, no visible resentment. I watched her for several seconds. Vix's voice returned to me. Then get her there. Evelyne turned. She saw me. Something passed across her expression, recognition first, then surprise, then a smile. Hey, I took my usual table. You're back. You sound surprised. A little. She approached with the coffee pot. I figured the cold coffee scared you away. Almost. She laughed. It wasn't forced. That bothered me more than it should have. Black, she asked. You remembered. You complained about it enough. Once? Memorable performance. She turned over the cup sitting on the table and filled it. Steam rose between us. I watched her hand, still steady. Almost. There was a slight tremor when she finished pouring. She noticed me noticing. Her fingers tightened around the handle. Everything okay? She asked. Fine. You've got that look again. What look? Like you're analyzing me. I leaned back. Maybe I am. Find anything interesting? Plenty. Not yet. She smiled. Keep trying. Then she walked away. I stared after her. That wasn't how targets were supposed to respond. Most people disliked scrutiny. It made them defensive, nervous, angry. Evelyne seemed amused by it. I picked up the coffee, tasteless, predictable, unlike her. For the next 20 minutes I watched. Not because I needed to, at least that was what I told myself. I watched how she handled the room. An elderly man complained that his toast was too dark. Evelyne replaced it without argument. A woman with 2 children apologized repeatedly for the mess beneath their table. Don't worry about it, Evelyne said. That's what floors are for. The woman laughed, so did the children. At another table, a man snapped his fingers to get her attention. I expected irritation. Nothing. She simply turned. Need something? Coffee. You've still got half a cup. I want it hot. Then hot it shall be. She replaced it. No anger, no resentment. But when she turned away, I caught the smallest tightening of her jaw. There. That was useful. She wasn't immune. She simply chose what she allowed others to see. That was different, and potentially exploitable. Sean emerged from the kitchen carrying a stack of menus. His eyes found me immediately. I gave him nothing. He understood. Evelyne passed him. Table 6 needs toast. You've got legs, Sean said. She stopped. So do you. His expression changed. For half a second, I thought she might finally push him. Instead, she smiled. Mine are currently carrying table 4's breakfast. Sean looked at the plates in her hands. Someone at the counter laughed. His face reddened. Just get it done. Always do. She kept walking. I almost smiled. Almost. This was exactly the problem. Pressure didn't crush her. She turned it into humor. Worse, other people responded to it. The room became lighter around her. Not literally, not quite. But I could feel the change. Vix had been right about one thing. This couldn't continue. Evelyne returned to my table. Refill? I slid the cup toward her. She poured. You always work mornings? And afternoons? Every day. Almost. Sounds miserable, she shrugged. It pays rent. That's a depressing philosophy. It's New York. I glanced at the marks on her arm. You look tired. Her smile weakened. Finally. I am tired. The honesty surprised me. Then why keep doing this? Doing what? This. I gestured around the diner. Running yourself into the ground. She looked at me as though the answer were obvious. Because rent doesn't care if I'm tired. Fair. And neither does Sean. She glanced toward the counter. Sean pretended not to notice. Also fair. She started to leave. Evelyne. She turned. Do you still paint? The change was immediate, not dramatic. Her shoulders loosened. The exhaustion remained, but something behind her eyes sharpened. Whenever I can. There it was, the light. I'd found the door. What do you paint? Depends. On? My mood, what I've seen, what won't leave me alone. Sounds inconvenient. It can be. Why do it? She considered the question. Then she shrugged. Because sometimes something gets stuck inside you, and putting it somewhere else is the only way to understand it. I stared at her. That answer wasn't in the file. What? Nothing. You did it again. Did what? That analyzing thing. Occupational hazard. She narrowed her eyes. What exactly do you do? I had prepared several answers. Consultant, accountant, private investor. Anything boring enough to discourage additional questions. Instead, I said, I work at a museum. Her expression changed completely. A museum? The Whitlock. You work at the Whitlock Museum? You've heard of it. Of course I've heard of it. For the first time since I'd met her, Evelyne looked genuinely excited. Not polite, not resilient. Excited. She pulled out the chair across from me and sat without asking. Interesting. What do you do there? Contemporary collection. Curator? Something like that. Something like that isn't a job title. It is, if you're vague enough. She smiled. I've always wanted to go. Then go. Her smile faltered. Tickets cost money. I can get you in. She looked at me. Suspicion returned. Why? Because you're a painter. That concerned me. Fate can come knocking even when you're serving coffee, he said. Evelyne rolled her eyes. That's incredibly corny. I'm old. I'm allowed. You're not that old. Tell my knees. She laughed. Then she looked at me. Fine. I waited. Fine? Thursday, but only for a little while. That's all I'm asking. Not remotely, but she didn't need to know that. 3:30? I asked. 3:30. Don't be late. She raised an eyebrow. You're inviting me somewhere and already giving orders? I value punctuality. I can tell. She walked away. I watched her return to work. Progress, finally. 3 weeks of external pressure wouldn't have accomplished what 10 minutes of genuine conversation just had. Vix would approve. The thought should have pleased me. It didn't. Cal stood. He placed several bills beneath his coffee cup. Then he stepped beside me. For a moment, we both watched Evelyne. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Inviting someone to a museum? Thinking this only goes one direction. I turned toward him. He put on his hat. You think you're getting closer to her so you can change her. His eyes met mine. What happens when she changes you? I almost laughed. Almost. Not possible? Cal smiled. There was no mockery in it. That somehow made it worse. We'll see. He started toward the door, then stopped. Without turning around, he said, One more thing. What? Don't confuse kindness with weakness. The bell rang as he stepped outside. I watched him disappear into the morning crowd. Evelyne passed my table again. Your cop friend is weird. He's not my friend. Could have fooled me. She disappeared into the kitchen. I looked down at the coffee she'd poured. Steam no longer rose from it. Cold. I drank it anyway. Thursday. I had what I wanted. Access. Time. A chance to understand her well enough to find the weakness I couldn't see from a distance. That was progress. That was the mission. So why did Cal's question follow me all the way out of the diner? What happens when she changes you? Outside, the city continued exactly as it always had. Traffic, rainwater, sirens, millions of humans moving toward millions of insignificant destinations. I stepped into the crowd. For the first time, I wasn't entirely sure who I was studying anymore. Chapter 4. The Whitlock Museum was quieter than I remembered, the kind of silence that pressed against you instead of offering peace, like walking into a sanctuary that had long since stopped believing in its own god. "This is Marla," I said as we entered the contemporary wing. We stopped beneath a suspended sculpture. Glass and rusted iron were woven together, swaying faintly from an unseen draft. Evelyne tilted her head back, her eyes catching the fractured light. She extended her hand to the curator. "Evelyne Marlowe." Marla's thin fingers barely brushed hers. "Damien tells me you're a painter." "I am." "What kind?" "Emotional, abstract, sometimes figurative." Marla's mouth curved slightly, though not quite into a smile. "Not political?" "Not for shock," Evelyne said. Marla made a non-committal sound and gestured for us to follow. The gallery was a cathedral of white and shadow. Canvases pulsed with unease. A woman rendered in soot and ash, her mouth stitched with wire. A child beneath broken glass, each shard reflecting a different terror. Figures tangled in unrecognizable shapes. Evelyne moved slowly, stepping lightly, her attention careful and deliberate. "They're brilliant," she said finally. "But?" I prompted. She hesitated. "They all feel like they've already given up." Her words lingered between us like incense smoke. I tilted my head. She hadn't lost faith, not in herself, not in the world. That made her dangerous. We found a small cafe tucked between galleries. The scent of coffee mingled with the faint must of varnish and paper. The lighting was warm, intimate, even comforting. We sat at a corner table, Evelyne with tea, me with black coffee. The rain outside streaked the glass with a silver haze. "Funny," I said. "I figured you for more of a coffee person." "I see coffee all day. I serve it. I smell it. I wear it." She shrugged. "After I'm done with work, I don't go near the stuff. I suppose I need a break from it." She took a gulp of her tea. I leaned a little closer, giving her enough space while balancing the conversation with a dash of intimacy. "Is that why you paint the way you do? To escape?" I asked, taking a sip of coffee. With another gulp of her tea, she answered my question without uttering a single word. "Makes sense," I said, not wanting the silence to linger. "You paint what you want to see, hope and light, the good, because reality is too mundane, too commonplace." She swallowed the last of her tea and shook her head. "No. Light and hope exist. They're real. Just because everyone focuses on the darkness doesn't mean the candle in the room doesn't exist. It just makes the candle that much more important." "And what does it look like to paint like that?" She shrugged. "Don't ask me. I'm trying to figure that out for myself. I'd like to see it." "It's not ready," she murmured. "I don't need ready. I need real. I'm curious. You're the only one in the city who paints like that." Her fingers tightened around her empty cup. A faint flush rose along her cheeks. I'm not sure it's finished." "Then it's perfect," I said. "I want it as it exists now. Not polished, not perfected, just alive." She studied me, eyes searching. "You don't give up, do you?" "I don't know how." A pause followed, heavy and deliberate. The hum of the cafe, the soft clink of cups, even the occasional shuffle of feet felt amplified. I observed, catalogued, waited. Her gaze shifted, finally meeting mine. "Maybe you'll see it someday," she said softly. "Someday could be tomorrow." She laughed quietly, a sound almost lost in the subdued chatter of the cafe. Persistent and impatient. That's a dangerous combination. Then I'm in good company. We moved between the paintings displayed nearby, her careful hand brushing the edge of a frame, mine noting the faint tremor of thought beneath her calm exterior. Each piece revealed more about her rhythm, her perspective, her restraint. And still Bloom remained unseen. When we left the cafe, evening had bled into a gentle rain. Streetlights glowed against the wet asphalt like molten gold. Evelyne clutched her sketchbook, and I watched her, noting how even in mundane motion she retained grace and purpose. Her apartment was in a narrow brownstone on the Lower East Side, smelling faintly of turpentine and rain. Inside, canvases leaned against every wall. Stacks of sketchbooks filled the room, brushes resting in jars of cloudy water. The lamplight fell soft and low, illuminating the space without casting shadows that hid the painting. And then I saw it. Bloom. A daylily, yellow and stubborn, pushing through cracked concrete. The brushstrokes were rough, the edges unfinished. And yet it breathed, alive in a way no other work in this city could claim. "That's it," she said softly. "It's called Bloom." I stepped closer, careful not to touch. The shadows bent around it, reluctant to cling. "It isn't finished," she said. "Maybe you are," I said. She hesitated, uncertain whether that was praise or insult. "You said you wanted something real," I reminded her. "I don't care if it's complete." Her lips twitched into the faintest smile. "You really don't give up?" "Never have." She studied the painting again, eyes narrowing. "When I paint, it feels like something else moves through me, like it already exists, and I'm just uncovering it." "Maybe that's what all creation is," I said. "Excavation." Silence stretched between us, heavy, intimate, charged. "I don't know if I can finish it," she said finally. "You will," I replied. "That's what you do. You finish what others can't." The air seemed to hum around the painting, pulsing with something beyond simple pigment and canvas. I could destroy it in a breath, erase it from the world, but I didn't. Not yet. She would just recreate it. The smarter move was patience, to understand her rhythm, to find the thread that could unravel her from within. If she painted light that refused to die, I would become her shadow. I left her building later, the street empty, the air sharp with rain. I could sense the painting from here, faintly but undeniably. Bloom pulsed like a heartbeat, alive beyond my control. I'd only begun to fall into her orbit, and whatever Bloom was, a symbol, a warning, a spark, it had already begun to spread. Chapter 5. By the time I reached the club, the city had already swallowed the night whole. Rain dripped from the rooftops in slow, gleaming trails, and the air pulsed faintly with the bass echo bleeding from the basement below. I pushed through the entrance, a narrow stairwell marked by nothing but a red light, and descended. The deeper I went, the thicker the heat became. The smell of smoke, perfume, and metal. The vibration of music through concrete. A pulse that wasn't quite human. The bouncer didn't speak. He just stepped aside when he saw my eyes. Inside, the light was a constant shift between red and black. People moved like shadows underwater, some human, some not. The music throbbed like a living thing. Every time I came here, it felt smaller. The walls pressed closer, the air heavier. Once I'd found this place comforting. The rhythm, the chaos, the darkness that didn't pretend to be anything else. Now it felt like standing inside a wound that refused to close. I threaded through the crowd and reached the bar. The bartender, a gaunt man with no reflection in the mirror behind him, nodded once. "Usual?" I shook my head. "Vix." He hesitated, glanced left and right, then pressed a button beneath the counter. The floor groaned softly. "You know she doesn't like being interrupted unannounced." "She'll make an exception." The bar split open down the middle. A seam of light flared briefly, then the counter slid aside, revealing the stairs. As I descended into the cellar, the air changed. Colder, darker, vibrating with something old. At the base of the steps, the door opened into another world. The underground club stretched out before me. Glass boxes were suspended in shadow, dancers moving inside like slow, burning flames. The floor was a shifting mosaic of smoke and light. Laughter echoed through the air, low and predatory. Here the lost souls came to forget. The demons came to feed. I passed through them unnoticed. Most avoided my gaze. The few who didn't averted their eyes the moment they caught the flicker of something ancient behind mine. Vix was at the center, where she always was. She reclined on a couch that looked alive with movement, surrounded by two lesser demons who fawned over her like pets. Her hair was black as ink, her skin pale enough to catch every glint of light. Her eyes, too wide and too knowing, caught me the moment I stepped into the circle. "Well," she purred, smiling like a wound that had learned to speak, "if it isn't my favorite half-blood." I didn't respond immediately. I never did. That was part of our dance. "Reporting in?" she asked, her voice lilting. "Yes." She rose from the couch, bare feet soundless against the floor. The smell of smoke and roses followed her. Her mood shifted by the second. Sweetness curdling into something sharp. Affection bending toward mockery. "And how's our little painter?" "Still painting," I said. Vix's grin widened. "Good. Let her build something beautiful. It makes the fall so much sweeter when it cracks." I didn't answer. My thoughts drifted back to the apartment. The scent of oil paint. The soft pulse of yellow light in the shape of a flower. Bloom. The image had burned itself into me. I could still see it when I closed my eyes, still feel the quiet radiance it carried, unbothered by the darkness around it. "You're quiet," Vix said, tilting her head. "That's not like you." "She's different," I said. "Different?" "She doesn't break the way others do." Vix laughed softly. "They all break, darling. Some just make prettier noises." Her hand brushed my shoulder, cold as glass. "So what's the holdup? Is our sweet Evelyne getting under your skin?" "She's difficult to read." "Then stop reading her and start dismantling her. You know the procedure." I nodded. "I'm working on it." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Work faster." The words sank into me, heavy and hollow. For a moment, the scent of her, smoke and decay, mixed with something deeper, older. That's when it happened. A ripple passed through the room. The lights flickered once. Every head turned. The air thickened, the kind of silence that precedes a storm. Vix straightened, her expression twisting. "What is that?" The bass stopped. The DJ's hand froze over the controls. Then, from the far end of the room, the crowd parted. A man stepped through the haze. Tall, clean, unhurried. The light followed him as if reluctant to let him go. His presence carved through the air like a blade. Cal. The radiance wasn't blinding, but it was unbearable. The kind of light that showed too much. The demons shrieked, their laughter breaking into animal sounds. Hisses, growls, choked howls. Some hid behind their hands. Others backed against the walls, smoke peeling from their skin where the light touched. I stayed still. My pulse, or what passed for one, pounded once in my throat. Vix stumbled backward, shielding her eyes. "Leave my presence," she screeched. "You know it's not natural for angels to mingle with demons." Cal's voice, when it came, was calm, cold. "I've come not for you." Vix's lip curled. "Then for who?" He turned his gaze toward me. The half-demon. The room seemed to contract around the words. The air tasted like iron. Vix laughed sharply, though her voice trembled. "You have no authority here." Cal's expression didn't change. "I have no need for authority." He stepped closer, each footfall ringing like a slow heartbeat. "I'm not here to stop you," he said. nor to interfere with your mission. Vix spat the word mission like poison. Then why are you here, Lightborn? Cal's eyes stayed fixed on me. Because he's forgotten who he is. Something deep inside me tightened, a recognition I didn't want. I know who I am, I said, though it sounded hollow. Do you? Cal asked quietly. You think you can corrupt her, but you've already been changed by her. She will be mine, I said. The words came too fast, too hard. I will control her. Cal smiled faintly, the expression softening something inhumanly old. You seem so sure, and yet... His voice dropped, gentle now, almost pitying. You've seen the painting. You've already lost. I didn't answer, couldn't. But in losing, Cal said, you might find yourself. The words lingered in the air, heavy and still. Then he turned away. As he walked, the demons recoiled again, spitting and hissing, their laughter turning wild and shrill. The light followed him to the door, then dimmed as he vanished into the stairwell. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Vix began to laugh. Low at first, then rising into something sharp and manic. Oh, Damien, she purred, her voice laced with venom. You really are winning the lost, aren't you? Why else would one of them crawl down here just for you? Her laughter echoed off the walls as she stepped closer, eyes glittering with malice. Maybe you're more valuable than I thought. Before I could move, she was on me. Her hand gripped the back of my neck, her mouth close to my ear. Good boy, she whispered, the words dripping like acid. Then she kissed me. The air around us trembled, hot, suffocating. I kissed her back because that was what was expected, because anything less would draw suspicion. But my mind wasn't here. It was upstairs, in a small apartment that smelled of paint and rain. It was in the yellow light of a single flower breaking through stone. It was in the sound of Cal's voice, calm and absolute. You've already lost.